Many of the people within the video game industry have been silent on the recent censorship. A lot of studios and people who run these companies haven't really said anything, and I think it's because they're afraid to be blacklisted and censored themselves by Visa and Mastercard. But now the International Game Developers Association is coming out saying they are seriously alarmed by the recent delisting of games. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, of course, the more people we can get talking about this situation, the better. That's why I put up so many videos and so many other people are covering it consistently. But now we have the IGDA, or the International Game Developers Association, releasing a statement condemning the recent crackdown on games featuring adult themes on PC storefronts, calling for greater transparency and fairness in the moderation of adult games. Now, I've been saying this for years at this point because I've covered censorship consistently for about 6 years at this point, and Steam, Sony, all of these different platforms and companies have never had clear and consistent guidelines for developers. They could, in theory, ban whatever they felt like on one day and then allow whatever they want the next day. And now, of course, we have this giant wave of censorship happening that's outside of their control. Though I do think it is important to point out that they themselves have censored games in the past, but we need to put aside our discontent with the decisions that Valve has made in the past, because this is going to affect games across the board, entertainment across the board, not just even video games, actually. Video games, movies, TV shows, even books, music. We've seen the situation with Spotify requiring identification, but we are talking about our entertainment being at risk, which is why it's so important to call this out so consistently. And I can't say I'm particularly shocked that a lot of game developers and the CEOs of these large companies, they don't want to come out and make a statement because they are afraid of putting a target on their backs. But we do need as many people talking about this as possible. I know that GOG had recently put up the controversial game bundle. It had gotten about 1 million downloads in like less than 24 hours, which is phenomenal to hear, but we need more of that energy in the industry right now. It says the statement comes after both Steam and itch.io caved to pressure from payment processors, themselves targeted by anti-porn lobby group Collective Shout, and abruptly delisted or de-indexed a number of games with adult themes. While IGDA stresses that it is not defending the circulation of harmful material, which many of the delisted games would certainly qualify as, it says that the current enforcement of these policies is vague and lacks transparency. I, of course, am somebody who believes if something is properly rated and it is legal content, then it should be for sale, and all of these games, from what I have seen, are legal content. Of course, I understand that there are always going to be games that you might be uncomfortable with, and that's perfectly fine. You don't have to buy them, you don't have to download them. You don't have to consume that content if it makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable and you just don't like it. But we shouldn't take away experiences from other people. It says, though, that the situation leading to delisting and deplatforming legal, consensual, and ethically developed games, especially from LGBTQ plus and marginalized creators, is not okay. I think that it is ridiculous right here that they are highlighting LGBTQ plus and marginalized creators. Any creator affected by this should be deemed important. We should not put certain creators over others. Developers report games being delisted or hidden despite prior approval or long-standing presence on these platforms. The lack of transparency around enforcement criteria, sudden shifts in policy, and an absence of appeal pathways leave creators with no clear path to compliance or recourse. Further reports suggest that recent policy changes are driven in large part by pressure from payment processors like Mastercard, Visa, and others, who may threaten to withhold payment processing services from platforms hosting adult content. As a result, financial institutions are now influencing which stories can be told and sold in games with minimal transparency or public accountability. I definitely agree with this. It is an unfortunate situation all around. I personally believe that credit card companies should be regulated like utilities, such as water or electricity. I do not think that they should be able to just rip away the funding source of creators I think that that is complete and utter BS. They should not be able to tell people what they can and cannot purchase either, though at this point in time, they are not regulated in such a way, which is why it's so important we speak up, because they can get away with a hell of a lot right now. IGDA is calling for clearer guidelines from both platforms and payment processors to distinguish prohibited content from lawful adult expression. The problem with this is that, from what I have seen, all of the content that was taken down was legal. So, if you have these guidelines laid out clearly and concisely, well, then Visa and Mastercard would be proven to be wrong on the front of what content they do and do not allow to be monetized. Now, there comes the question of, did they demand the removal of this certain content? Was it just Steam and itch.io shooting first, asking questions later? We don't really know, because even Valve is not being fully transparent, but they have called out Mastercard and said basically any content that they deem damaging to their brand, they would be forced to remove. So who knows? It says, though, that the issue is not just about adult content. Of course, it is not just about adult content. Why do you even really need to state that? It is about developer rights. It is about developer freedom. It is about the freedom of expression. It is about our art being protected. It is a much larger issue than just developers and consumers. And that is why it is so worrying that we saw this basically happen with the drop of a dime. They might have been planning this for months and months and months. Given Valve and itch.io statements, it sounds like they were also slapped with this news and they were forced to remove everything as quickly as possible, though we don't know for certain in that case either. But it is extremely worrying what is going on just with the internet in general right now. Certain companies and governments requiring IDs if you are believed to be under the age of 18, or if you just want to use the internet. None of these things are okay. It says that it's about developer rights, artistic freedom, and the sustainability of diverse creative work in games. So, of course, they are really highlighting the diversity angle, which I guess does technically help in this case, given we see so many of these creators being able to bully certain platforms so easily. In the case of Collective Shout, it definitely worked out for them, but it's not just about diverse creators being silenced, it's about all creators being silenced. And it finishes up with saying the organization also provides contact details for Visa and Mastercard, urging people to get in touch with the major payment processors to make their concerns around financial censorship heard, and gamers have been doing just that. Gaming communities across social media have organized campaigns to put pressure on the two payment processors, flooding both companies with calls and emails registering their concerns about censorship on gaming platforms. And there are multiple avenues in order to contact them if you are interested in doing so, and I highly recommend you do. Those links to threads will be linked down below. But yeah, right now we also have game developers and the International Game Developers Association coming out and speaking about how they are seriously alarmed by the recent delisting of games. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this and of course found it important and informative, make sure to give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.